please help me in welcoming Mr. Abhishek.
All right, mic check. Can you hear me? It's just for the recording. Okay. All right. Let's start, everyone. Good morning. I believe this is my first presentation here for the BSides SATH. I've been here as a volunteer, as a student, and this is my first time here as a speaker. So this is a very beginner talk. So how many of you guys here just getting into cybersecurity or have been there like for last 2-3 years? All right. And I'm assuming then the rest of the folks are maybe SOC managers or cybersecurity managers. Okay. So we have anyone here who has been sitting and working as looking on dashboards or any cybersecurity dashboards. All his shift life or his work day to day involves a lot of dashboards. Yeah. Okay. So that's why I'm here trying to get some answers for the beginner's talk. So let's dive into it. What we are covering here today. Oh, just about me here. I've been working in cybersecurity for last 8 years. And before that, I was a NOC engineer, a network engineer. So I had to do CA, a master's degree to get into cybersecurity. So maybe in the last section, we'll discuss on certifications, how these can help you pivot to cybersecurity. So the reason I'm here today is the cybersecurity community gets stronger when we invest in people early. So I've been spent my last decade on cybersecurity, just going through all the initial phases, security engineering roles from T1 to T2 analyst, and then working as a threat detection engineer, and also then performing some purple teaming exercises, and even including threat huntings for various 0 days coming through. So this is what we are going to cover: 5 slides, 5 topics, the reality of the SOC work, then the incident response life cycle, malware, ransomware, going to talk something about it, how attacks have been unfolding, then how to build a threat detection approach, how to have a hunting mindset, and then in the last we'll just cover some certs and some career advice for people. All right. So the reality of SOC work. So as people mentioned, they're watching the Sentinel dashboards or the security SIM dashboards. And when I was working on those certifications, I was going through the TryHackMe labs, self-made labs. And the reality is, in those labs, we are just working on 10 alerts or like bunch of alerts, and we are just determining if it's true positive, false positives, or maybe something like, hey, can you identify which is a phishing email, all that kind of sort. But in reality, you're logging in, you're being handed over a bunch of already triage alerts where you are now being held responsible for the entire next 8 hours, and you have a queue of hundreds of alerts, like 800, 600, depending on the day. So just a small me, it's a flood. I don't even know. I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. So building an alert triage mindset and building up that skill is crucial for these early years. So your first year will be somewhere you're just creating a baseline. So most of the alerts are false positives. I've been working as a cyber managed service. We are providing SOC services and been for 500 Fortune companies. We have been working with banks, beverage companies, all their SOC environments. 95% of the alerts are false positives. And we'll talk about how AI is helping in the end if we have some time. But these alerts are right now being handled by humans, most of them. So imagine Out of these 800, 900s, we had to pick up and have a mindset or create some intuition where we are actually trying to catch those 5% which are true positives, right? So in the early days, your job is not to uh, create investigation reports. Your actual job is to create that mindset. So the shift work and fatigue, we know these 800 alerts, you're just working 8 hours on the run, trying to get as many as you can, and then handing over this to the next shift. So what can help is, how do you fight this? This is something where you need to understand, like taking breaks might help, having a mindset of asking early questions to your leaders, to your team leads, even your T2 analyst who has been there for more than a year. So that will help create a baseline which helps in those early phases. So night shifts, rotations, security doesn't take a day off. Most of the people, most of the humans attacks, like there are repetitive alerts, and also especially on a long weekend coming up. The security operations centers is going crazy. The alert spike suddenly shoots up, and we have no idea on if these are false positives, true positives, and especially the employee count is pretty low in SOC as well. So this is where, again, something like having a clear plan, and your early phase should be not on working on the actual incident, but actually going through all the response plans we have made, like all the documentations, the SOPs. Those are the crucial ones. So reading your first theme, has anyone worked here on Sentinel, Splunk dashboards or the same alerts? So someone who is recently graduated or someone who is in his first job as a cybersecurity engineer, for him, checking up a Sentinel dashboard might seem like he's working on, he's actually working in a cockpit for 747. There's so many panels, so many things going on, and no directions. But as an analyst, junior analyst, your job is to understand the tool. So every SIM tool is like working on in the backend for the logs. And logs are nothing but events. So events can be classified with 4 questions. So your job is just to ask these 4 questions: what, how, when, and where. So if you have these questions ready, you can ask your T2 analyst or your team lead, hey, I have this information, and I don't know what to do. So when you go with this mindset, with these answers already in their pocket, the next investigation steps speeds up. So this is just a small textbook where you're following the playbook, but the reality is you are adapting on the fly. You found out, okay, the playbook is not updated anymore. The playbook doesn't cover a certain scenario, and then you're also giving a feedback to the team that, hey, this needs to be checked. And similarly, all these were investigating each alert, triaging dozens at once. You're not. I've seen so many analysts working 3 or 4 multiple alerts at the same time because they have SLA to meet. Then documenting is again a very key thing. I'm going to repeat all my session, which, for example, how many alerts I worked on today, how many of the incident tickets I escalated to the next team. The common mistakes I've seen from the newcomers is mainly they are not checking up the tickets we already worked on or your teammate worked on. So imagine there's a feedback from the team that, hey, this is an approved application. We just need to ignore these alerts, and we are sending tickets back to back to the incident response team or to the next team. And the next team is just annoyed, sending all the escalations, and they're done with the team saying, hey, the performance is not good. So this has been the escalations I've been dealing for last few years. And main reason is the analyst just not analyst is fatigued because of handling the queues. So imagine he's spending all his 8 hours just on the queue and not seeing what's in the past we already worked on. All right. So you have triaged something. Now next phase is how it looks, and we have already got the alert, and the next step will be working on it, right? So this is a life cycle. It's just a routine alert, just staying calm. This is, you have already made a mindset, you already have a baseline. Hey, this is false positives. I just have 20 minutes, or like if a critical alert needs 30 minutes of SLA, you're going to spend next 30 minutes just browsing the queue, watching your phone maybe. But in reality, after that 30 minutes, you seem to have understand, oh, this is not a false positive, this is a true positive. So you're in panic mode and you feel like everything is on fire. So, and then you're going to reach out to your T2, your T2 or your lead analyst is going to watch the queue and see, hey, the alert is sitting there for last 30 minutes and there's no incident update or there's no work being done on that alert. And this is where most of the people panic and they start. So reaching out to your leads early with that 4 questions ready is something to be looked on. So the next phase, you already know the alert is true positive, what can be done. So I'm not going to cover the next framework of the life cycle, but a life cycle I've prepared for myself from the years of experience. We already know the detection phase. This is where we already have the alerts in our hand and we are ready to go. This is something we already know that something is wrong and we have to take a look. So this could be a user calling a help desk. Hey, my mailbox seems to be working suspicious. Can you check? So do you have the queries? Do you have a playbook ready? So this is the first phase, detection. So you already have a notion built up that, hey, is this something true positive? And the mistakes most of the people do is in the next step, which is isolating the uh, system or isolating the user. For example, the user already mentioned in the report that in the email that his account is suspicious. So you don't have to wait for the permissions to contain the actual alert. So you can actually go ahead. First, the first step is to stop the bleeding. So contain the alert, disable the user. All these steps comes in again in your playbook. You will take actions based on your playbook, and thus you can then next step is spend time on the actual investigation. That okay, now what to go in, how do I check the logs, what logs needs to be checked. All this comes later in the eradication where we are removing the or patching or clearing all those files, quarantining the files. All that stuff will come in eradication. In the recovery phase, where we're trying to get okay, the mail's been has been quarantined, the mailbox has been cleaned, the antivirus scan has been done. This is where we are going to recover him or the account or system accounts or actual system, getting it back online. And the last phase, which everyone forgets, is creating a report of the lessons learned from the events. So this is something I've seen as a L2, L3 analyst, where most of the people, they are forgetting that, hey, if we had 10 true positive incidents in this month, we have to work on it and create maybe a plan which will help us get to our next 4 months goals. So these 4 tickets or 10 tickets which are true positive, these will be used back in those quarterly meetings where you're going to bring up these to discussions like, hey, we had these gaps to be covered. So the CISO needs to have this handy, like, hey, we don't have a phishing simulation tool, we don't have DLP tool. So we can't have visibility on data exfiltration. We can't know what's being exfiltrated. all those gaps will be covered from the learning phase. So we do need to have those reports ready. So document everything, know when to escalate, and ask questions. These are the roles as a junior analyst, and then taking these and creating reports will be something for the senior roles. Moving on to the malware and ransomware section. Again, uh, mostly I've seen the, the MITRE frameworks, study of cybersecurity frameworks. These are very helpful. So we detected, we now know it's a malware, and now the next step is identifying which phase we are in. So it MITRE frameworks, which helps us, we can use them as a guide, check if it's initial access. Usually malwares, ransomwares, they are already in the later stages. So maybe it's in lateral movement, or already we can say a B2 or C2 connecting to a beacon. All this we already are past these early phases. So these early phases we can later on, once we have isolated the environment, isolated the systems, we can then later on go in, try to recover all this in the later phase. But the first step will be again how to contain these and stopping the blood. So real malware is very quiet, so it won't be detected until initial access or it's in persistence phase. Until something like a small trigger, like I've seen jailbird attacks, like leaving off the land attacks, where they're also trying to control the CPU spikes. Most of the SOCs already have. I've seen most of the malware alerts is hiding like a crypto miner, which is also controlling the CPU spikes. So it won't be detected unless it's trying to connect to a malicious domain or something which is other than its baseline. So this is where the threat hunting will come in the picture, where your threat hunters who are already working on the analysis will come in. So as a junior analyst, your job is not to work on the investigation. Your job is just to have those 4 questions ready. The query is ready. If the CISO might want to ask you questions like, hey, can you tell me how many users were reported? Right? We should be handy with those results like, hey, I have a KQL or SPL Splunk query ready to get all these users impacted. So moving on, the early warnings we already know. I have a case where ransomware cases where the teams which were which have done the tabletop exercises, purple team exercises, were able to recover them targets their systems back in like 36 hours, compared to the teams who don't do these often. And most of these exercises, I've seen a lot of companies going through just like as a as an audit thing, like as a mandatory process, they're just conducting it. But the teams who are actually have these documents ready, they are very good in responding and getting back the system back online. So a real ransomware story where I've seen teams struggling is still using tape backups compared to the hard drives, and there might be some reasons of because of the tapes are more secure. So there might be those reasons, but as a junior analyst, you don't have to know all those right now. You just have to have ready with those CISO questions like, hey, how many users impacted and are they cleaned enough? Are they cleaned out to get the recovery done? So people ransomware is not an event, it's an entire campaign. So it's gonna be done, like it's gonna happen in the environment for like a month, maybe like few weeks. So it's not a one day or one alert which you're gonna be working on. So building a threat detection, building the analyst eye, we have to be reactive, and we have to move our focus from being reactive to proactive. This is something after T2 analyst, you'll be working on threat hunts like, hey, this is a campaign going on. Can we check if we have any indicators or check if our systems are affected? And you have the IOCs, and like, for example, Log4j was pretty quite loud enough where a lot of teams running, doing a scans for last 30 days, and all they could find was just a Java server connecting to some other domains, So with this detection rules and hunting mindset, it takes time. So you have to get past through the baseline where you already have created a baseline for your environments, and nobody can give you like a maybe a try hack me lab for that to build that intuition. So what you're going to do is spend more times on your detection logics in your EDRs, in your SIMs. So you'll be working on the logics you have deployed, and I've seen teams where they are struggling with the 800 rules they've deployed. So I've seen things which can help is like, hey, what are the top 5 rules which triggered this month? Okay, can we tune these? How many of these were actual alerts and how many of these were false positives? So that's how good detection engineering teams get their noise back to the actual levels. So first thing is getting those false positives out. True positive or false positive, then a process can, a same rule in different environments can behave different. There might be uh, word, word files spawning a PowerShell script, which is a legitimate activity for a particular admin, but it can't be the similar for an HR who is working 9 to 5 job, right? So we need to handle these and tune them out accordingly. So false positive versus true positive intuition. Every time you will be investigating, is this true malicious? Is this true for both? And over time, you will build a pattern recognition. No one tells a threat detection team that, hey, you need a project skill to work on it. So this is something which my senior actually helped me with, is to build those skill sets, which will help me in threat hunting and even in detection engineering. All right, and the last section is about surviving. So SOC tier 1, tier 2, as I mentioned, is the early phase. We are handling tickets. We are just building our baselines. Then as a senior tier 3 analyst, you'll be leading the investigations, writing the detection rules. As a lead, you're running the engagements. You're trying to see what's the top noise, what's the top incidents we are working on. So each step requires something different. And now in this AI age, I believe a single man can handle all these 4 phases of SOC and IR. So imagine the SOC tier 1, SOC tier 2 is now AI agents helping out, and then you're just working on the rest of those 3 phases. And for some certifications, I've already worked on and submitted few TryHack Me labs. I've worked on those paths. These are very good for creating those skills mindset where you can work on actual malware alerts and do even some reverse engineering to see how it's connecting to some C2 beacons back in the network. And if there's any questions on certifications, I'm happy to answer. I've done SANS certifications, GPAN, and even cloud threat detection. But if your company is willing to sponsor you, that's great. But CEH and Security Plus are the building blocks where you can start your career with. And that's it. These are the key takeaways. Confusion is normal, but it will get better. You have to have those mindset where you have to move on from tier 2 to tier 3, and you have to jump all those ladders. Then next is IR cycle is a framework. It's not a script. We have to adapt on each alert. Then ransomware has a skill chain. You have to spot it early. So there will won't be alarms. There will be just the ransomware nodes in the environment where you just have to start creating those threat hunting mindset. Where I've seen a environment where a stale account was used in the attack. So we found the actual user who was being involved in all the malicious activity, and that user left the organization 10 years ago. So that's not a tool problem, or it's an IAM thing where they're not updating, they're not keeping up with the policies, where these all hospitalization mandatory things like are we checking the users every quarter quiz? Okay. So last thing is detection. You have to build these skills, and everything compounds in the end, and every incident teaches you. So again, making notes of those two positive incidents is a key. That's all. Yeah, we don't have times. Uh,